Hey everyone, just a quick follow-up on that Esbit alcohol stove that I just did a boil test on. You'll recall, if you've seen that video, the boil test was 9 minutes and 10 seconds, about somewhere in that range for 2 cups of water, which isn't terribly competitive with some of the other sets you can get out there for the Trangia stove, like the West Wind that I have after I made the modification to it, that is. So as I did with the West Wind, I want to take a closer look at the stove and the pot stand, everything here real quick, and see if we can figure out some areas that it could be improved and why the performance might not be as good as it could be. The first thing I wanted to go over was from other videos on YouTube. I've found that if you have the base of your pot 1 inch above the burner top here, that's kind of the sweet spot to get the best boil time. Looking at this, I'm gonna kind of have to eyeball it because you'll recall the pots have a little indentation down there, so they sit in like that. So I'm not measuring to the top here, but just eyeballing it, that looks to be maybe about 1 1/4 inches or so from the top, so it's a little off, not much, but as we saw with the West Wind, that 1/4 inch can make quite a bit of difference. Just cutting the 1/4 inch off the West Wind stove, I improved the boil time by, I believe, over 3 minutes, so it has quite an impact. But more so, I think this pot support here has the same issues the West Wind stove had, and that is the flame licks up against it and the whole thing basically becomes a giant heat sink, and it sucks heat into the pot stand, which means it's not going into your stove and into your pot and into your water. So I'm gonna go ahead and light it up and let it get burning here, and then I'll come back and show you guys the flame pattern so you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. Okay, so I've had it burning here with the pot on it for several minutes now to let it get nice and hot and kind of to the steady state. And you'll see right there on the right side of the flame that the flames get tall enough that they actually extend out of the little slits cut in the pot stand there. So the flames are basically, and it's happening on the left side of the screen here too. So basically all the way around the pot base there, the flames are extending a little bit too far, and a lot of the heat is just going into heating up the pot stand. Now, that isn't entirely bad because since the way this pot rests right there, a lot of that heat will get put right back into the pot, but enough of it gets put into the pot stand that I think it affects the performance. And once this thing gets going, even now, this bottom part down here, I can't touch it with my finger, it's too hot. So I think that is another thing that is affecting the boil time. That one, I'm not entirely sure there's any modification that I could make to really fix that. That's, I guess, just kind of the way it is. So here's a different view of the flame pattern on the pot there. Here we are from the underneath looking at how it hits up against the pot. And here is another issue that kind of stands out for me, is just, I think I understand that they wanted this to be a compact set, but it almost seems that for the Trangia style burner that the Esbit is modeled after, this pot is just too narrow. Because if you see right in this area, basically the flames coming out of the circular jet expand out kind of conically, and they're hitting the pot right up at the edge, right here. You can see right up where the pot stand is. So you've got this big area underneath the pot that really doesn't have the flame contacting it directly because it's just kind of expanding out circularly, and it's just hitting around the edges of the pot. And that also, I can tell that it does that because when the water finally starts to boil, the bubbles are popping all around the edge of the pot, but not in the middle. So that just seems like it's not the ideal, flame pattern to have. I don't know if that's because the pot's too narrow. That's gonna be my speculation on it. It might have something to do with the pot sitting up a little too high. Don't really know how to fix it. It's just kind of pointing out what I think some of the issues with it are. So hopefully that kind of explains where the 9-minute, 10-second boil time comes here. Certainly if you're looking for the fastest style Trangia stove out there, this is not it. But it does have a nice, compact setup that fits inside the pot there, so it has its advantages too. But anyway, just pointing that stuff out, so hope that was helpful. So one last gripe, and it's a potentially serious one, at least for me anyway, with the Esbit alcohol stove, is that it leaks fuel, which, I mean, that's the style of this stove. That's one of the huge things it has going for it, is that you can snuff it out and store fuel inside of it. But if it's leaking on you, then I mean, you're not going to want to carry that in your pack, or much less inside your cook set if it's leaking fuel everywhere. So that's a major bummer, but take it for what it's worth, I guess. Overall, with this guy, not counting the cook set and everything that came with it, which that seems quite fine, but the burner here and the pot stand that comes with it have some serious issues. Thank you guys for watching.